when we hear the word public speaker, we have a really limited idea of who that person would be. So for me, like I used to be very phobic about public speaking. And part of the reason for it was because I thought that being the kind of person I was didn't equal being able to be a good public speaker. Because you're only imagining, like the super kind of out there showman. But I think there's another style of public speaking that's more reflective and thoughtful and conveying ideas, and people like that too.
Is there advice you can give on how to overcome that? Like, if you're a shy person, how to be a public speaker?
I can totally give that advice because I used to, before I would give speeches, if I had to do it in law school, if I knew like today was the day when I was going to get called on in a law school class, I literally one time vomited on my way to class. Like,
Nice.
That's how nervous I used to be. And yeah, the way to do it is through desensitization. It's like been figured out. It's the way to overcome any fear. You have to expose yourself to the thing you fear, but in very small doses. So you can't start by giving the TED Talk. You have to start. I started by going to this class for people with public speaking anxiety, where on the first day, all we had to do was stand up and say our name and sit down. And that's the victory.
That's fun to watch, all those people with anxiety. Just okay, that's the first step, and then one step at a time.
Yeah, and then like with this class, you go back the next week, and he would have us come to the front of the room and stand up with other people standing next to us, so that you didn't have the feeling of being all alone in the spotlight. There were others sharing it with you, and you would answer some questions about where do you grow up, where do you go to school, and you declare victory, and you're done. And then little by little by little, you keep ratcheting up the exercises until you get to the point where you can do it. And then you start having successes and you realize, actually I can do this.
What about like writing versus improvising? Because I knew a few people, sort of the colleagues of mine that were working on TED Talks, and it feels like you're supposed to like write the thing like way ahead of time, and you practice it, and they like help you and all that kind of stuff. I don't think I've ever practiced a speech once in my life, or a lecture, or any of that. Like, I know it's really good to do, but do you find that relieves some of your anxiety preparing well, or are you now able to do not preparing well at all?
I definitely like to prepare before, but the kind of preparation that I've done for my TED Talks is completely different from what I've done for everything else. Because TED Talks are more like a theatrical event where it's like a one-person show. Yeah. And of course, if you were going to go on Broadway with a monologue, you would know every word. Yep. So it's kind of like that. And so I would rehearse it over and over the way you would do that.
Isn't that more anxiety? Like knowing every single word?
It's so much anxiety because, you're not even so freaked out about being on stage so much as what if I forget something?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they do things like the last TED Talk I gave, I actually did forget something halfway through. Like I just couldn't remember the next line. And so I had to walk over, like over there were my notes.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and the audience like very kindly clapped while I did that. And then I came back to the spotlight and kept going, and they edit that out.
Nice. You're done. So there's a failure mode. That's okay. But still, it seems really stressful. Like I'm not sure if I'll ever publish it, but I've been, mostly it's for a personal journey, but I've been working on a series on, wait for it, Hitler and the Third Reich. Sort of looking at the historical context of everything, because of my family was so much affected by that whole part of history. So for me to rigorously, I've read a lot about Stalin and Hitler, and for me to force myself, one of the best ways to force yourself to really consider material is to have to talk about it.
Totally. Yeah.
And so that's why I'm doing it. But I'm playing with ideas of some of it, maybe like 20% is written down on paper, but the rest of it is my thoughts in the moment. And it's a difficult balance to strike, because if you write a lot, you're going to be more precise, you're going to be more accurate, but you're going to miss some of the deep, like honest emotion. The silences won't be correct, or the silences between the words won't capture the depth of feeling, unless if you're somebody like me, if you're like, I guess that's what actors and actresses have to do. Like, basically, even though the script is fully written, you improvise between the words, between the lines.
Yeah.
But that's a skill.
Well, it also takes so much time. I mean, I experienced that with the TED Talks. It's like you get to a stage, so you're memorizing everything word for word. And at first, in that process, it comes out in a really wooden way, the way you're saying, like the emotion's gone. But once you really know it, so you've internalized the words, then all the emotion comes back and you can say them in a completely different way, and you're really speaking it from the heart. But you have to know it so well before you can do that.
I would still be
So I would never
out.
recommend it because it's just like, it's so time consuming.